Good morning, Digit fam. Adam Doud here with another dose of tech and geekery, and it seems crazy that we are just a couple of weeks away from closing out the 2010s. But I can tell you that I'm definitely in the holiday spirit, and I hope you are too. I'll be honest, this isn't my favorite time of the year. That honor falls to around April or so, when we finally put winter in our rearview mirror. But I am looking to close out this decade with a bang. But before we do that, we gotta do this. So, it is December 18th, 2019, and this is your Digit Daily. Looking back on a decade is hard. The world of tech comes at you fast, so it's very difficult to remember just what happened in the last 10 years. Seriously, in the world of tech, a year is like a lifetime and a decade is a millennia. Fortunately, we have Tristan at the helm of the SS Digit, and he's got some winners for you as we look back at some of the worst devices from the 2010s. Now, we're not talking about why does this exist type devices, we're talking about flat out bad for one reason or another. And boy, did Tristan find some winners. Naturally, the first one up has to be the Samsung Galaxy Note 7. Back in August of 2016, Samsung debuted the latest in its line of Note devices. It skipped over the number 6 and went straight to 7. That's how good it was, bringing the numbering system in line with the Galaxy S series. And boy, when this phone hit reviewers' hands, it struck all the right chords. It was beautifully designed, powerful, fast, a ton of onboard storage. It was considered at the time to be as close to a perfect smartphone as we had ever come. And then it exploded. And exploded again, and exploded again, and exploded again. It turns out the battery was to blame, and in September of that year, Samsung issued a full recall of the device, and people refused to send them back. Airlines had to forbid Note 7s on their planes, and people still refused to send them back. Finally, Samsung pushed out a software update that bricked the phone, just to get people to stop using the exploding phone. That's how revered this phone was, and that's how stupid some owners of the phone were. And I'm sure right now there are people out there who still own a Samsung Note 7, and those people are morons. Moving on to 2014, we got the Amazon Fire Phone. The Amazon Fire Phone had 6 cameras on it and 0 Google services. The former was great, the latter was terrible. And for most people, as in basically the entire world, the latter outweighed the former by a lot. The 6 cameras were used to give the Fire Phone what was called a dynamic perspective, which basically meant when you tilted the phone, the icons wiggled. Red tried the similar trick with the Red phone, and we all saw how that turned out. This phone also ran Amazon's custom fork of Android called Fire OS, which is the same OS that runs Kindle Fires today. It's not a bad OS, and the App Store is fairly robust. But the one thing that's missing is Google services. You know, the same reason most people outside of China won't buy a Huawei phone. No Gmail, no Chrome, no search. The phone also was exclusive to AT&T, which is honestly not the worst choice of carriers, but I'm fairly sure I've made my opinions on exclusivity known. During the Fire Phone fire sale, the phone was down to $160 with no contract and included a 1-year subscription to Amazon Prime, which at the time cost $100. So basically the phone itself was $60, and that was the closest I ever came to buy one, but I still didn't buy one. And finally, we spent a lot of time in October talking about the new keyboard on the MacBook Pro. Want to know why? Well, it's our third and last worst tech of 2010s, the butterfly keyboard. In 2015, Apple launched the MacBook Pro with a new kind of keyboard with minimal travel that made the MacBook thinner than ever before. And 4 years later, a new MacBook comes out with a 2014 keyboard, and it's all people can talk about. And honestly, if we hadn't already gone on and on and on and on and on and on and on about that keyboard, I'd rehash it here. But I think we're pretty much all on the same page at this point. The keyboard was a dumpster fire, and now it's gone. So too is the Note 7 and the Fire Phone, or as I could call them, the Amazon Fire Phone and the Samsung Fire Phone. And I think with the passage into the 2020s, we can finally put those jokes to rest, no? But what we can definitely put to rest is this top story, because it's time for the Roundup! Interestingly enough, I had a conversation last night with a friend who's in the market for a new cheap smartphone, and he brought up this very deal I'm about to tell you about because it's pretty good. The Moto G Series basically sets the standard in budget smartphones with Motorola's great software experience and neat tricks like the double chop for the flashlight. Well, that phone, which normally goes for $300, is down to just 180 buckaroos, and Best Buy will even knock off another 50 if you start up a new line with your carrier. If you are in the market for a budget phone, run, don't walk, to Best Buy and pick up this deal. Walt Mossberg over at The Verge looks back on the decade of Apple and notes that there weren't any real blockbusters from Apple under Tim Cook's era, which began in 2011. But that really isn't much of a surprise. While Apple continues to dominate in the smartphone and tablet market, hashtag what's a computer, the smartphone industry on the whole really hasn't had a blockbuster until arguably the Galaxy Fold just this past year. And the foldable market is still in its infancy as we try to figure out just how the hell to fold a screen without it breaking. We've got a ways to go, and Apple will get there eventually too, but it's likely that the iPhone was a once-in-a-lifetime device. Let's not get greedy. A fairly controversial study has emerged where researchers suggest that yellow light might be more harmful to sleep and the body clock than blue light. But wait, haven't smartphones developed actual features and technology and screen protectors to reduce blue light and make them more yellow over the past few years? Why, yes, they have. And this research suggests that that may actually be the wrong thing to do, like the exact 180-degree wrong thing. So, whoops. As mentioned, the research is still in question. The subjects of the experiment were mice, not people, and mice are nocturnal, but the lead scientist, Dr. Tim Brown, argues that he didn't study sleep, rather wakefulness, so the results should translate over. More study is needed, but to quote David Ruddock over at Android Police, after thinking about this for about 8 seconds, this makes sense, and the best idea to go to sleep at night is just to put the phone down entirely. Speaking of lighting, The Verge looks at the light bulb and the evolution that it's taken over the past 20 years or so. While incandescent used to be the standard, more and more people are adopting more efficient bulbs like CFLs and LEDs. In fact, incandescents were set to go the way of the dodo in 2020, which isn't totally true. Some incandescents would have still been okay, but mostly not because of a law signed by George W. Bush. Well, our current president decided that that was a bad thing and went ahead and reversed that law. Now, on the one hand, it makes sense. Incandescents are still a lot cheaper than CFLs and LEDs, but they're also woefully less efficient, resulting in higher energy bills, and they don't last as long, meaning you have to buy more of them. So, while on the face of it, yeah, I guess we get to buy cheaper light bulbs, but on the other hand, my electric bill is still insane. And while you Christmas shop from the comfort of your Prime membership, take a moment to look at the sniper who runs the logistics division of Amazon, Mr. Dave Clark. Reports of Clark are that he's merciless when it comes to logistics, and when you consider the worldwide empire that is Amazon and what it must take to offer thousands of products to millions of people in one day, yeah, I suspect the dude doesn't get much sleep, but he wouldn't have it any other way, and frankly, neither would you. And finally, this is just a gem. Welcome Gary Larson to the internet. Gary Larson is the creator and artist behind the awesome Far Side comics, which were single-panel comics that ran in newspapers from 1980 to 1995. For years, Larson resisted joining the internet, or the rabbit hole as he calls it, but now, since everyone and their mother has taken to scanning and uploading his work without permission, he's hoping that this website, thefarside.com, will inspire people to link to his site rather than just upload his cartoons themselves. It won't work, but at least people like me who actually respect intellectual property can check in every now and again. Thanks, Mr. Larson, and welcome again to the internet. So that's going to do it for today's Digit Daily. If you'd like to learn more about any of these stories, check out the links in the show notes and subscribe to our daily newsletter on Digit.com. And if you like what you heard, subscribe, leave a review, and don't forget to tell your friends about DigitDailyPod.com. Once again, I'm Adam Doud, Dead Technology on Twitter, and we'll talk again tomorrow.